Father's Day, everybody.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Pigskin, the Alabama Lions. Did I make up that name? Yeah, I really did for the purpose of this show. Anyways, we're glad to have everybody with us. Bo, unfortunately, couldn't be here. We're having some computer issues, so Jeremy Ballrick is pinch hitting for him. Glad to have you back, Jeremy.
Glad to be here.
That's all right, awesome. Let me go over the rest of the topics. We'll get to everybody else. All right, first of all, we're going to be talking about the connections that lie deep within with the Alabama Crimson Tide, Detroit Lions, a few players out there. Talk about Skip Holtz, Jake Bates, the expansion of HBO's Hard Knocks, and Talia Tagovailoa, so the brother of Tua. All right, let me go back to the crew. To my left, I have Mel Farr Jr. Welcome back, Mel.
It's great to be back. Hi, guys.
Glad to have you. And to my right, since I'm the motor mouth in the middle, that's Travis Holmes.
Evening, everybody.
And, of course, Jeremy, and now Coach Bono.
Hello, everybody. How you doing, Scott?
All right, we have a lot doing great. We have a live show. Even Coach Bono is going to do a little bit of promoting here about something at the very end of the show, and he knows what I'm talking about. We're trying to get this guy ready for commercials now that he's graduated in his broadcasting group. You don't know what I mean? Stick around. All right. All right, well, with that said, the worst kept secret since I've been talking about the Alabama Crimson Tide rolls deep into Detroit. I was waiting to get that deep out there. And let me reiterate, deep. Okay. Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Ryan Branch, Terry and Arnold. What do they have in common? They took the train from Tuscaloosa to Detroit. All right. Well, we're going to start with Jeremy first. What do you think of this Alabama connection in Motown?
Roll Pride. Come on now. Why not? I mean, we're going to have one of the better secondaries because of this. So far, Terry and Arnold at OTAs, it's looking like he's established himself as the CB2. Brian Branch is supposed to be the starting strong safety. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, who is more than likely, if Monty falters at all, he'll be RB1A instead of RB1B. And, of course, Jameson Williams, Dan Campbell says he looks like the most improved player in the camp. He actually gained 15 pounds of upper body mass, hasn't lost any speed. He's able to push off of the guys in press man coverage, and I heard from one of the beat writers, our new guy, Carlton Davis, kind of got pushed so hard he was rolled up like when Craig Reynolds blocked him.
Well, we got to go to the chat room here because we got somebody in here that definitely breathes what we're talking about. And this is my newly adopted daughter, Kate Aitchison. She's going to be heard from a lot when it's all said and done. When I say newly adopted, stick around. You're going to see what I mean. And, I'm excited about this one. Sure, she's a student at the University of Alabama. Why wouldn't she? So we're making her feel at home with this show here. So, hey, what else, Jeremy? Anything else you want to add to it?
That and the signing of Jake Bates led to the cutting of James Turner.
Don't jump ahead.
Okay. And all of this is all rolled into one.
I don't know how to count Spanish, so I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4. That equals Jameson Williams. That equals Jahmyr Gibbs, Brian Branch, and Terry and Arnold. We'll stick with that. If we want to have a Bates sighting, we'll do that in a moment. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I did mention all 4 of them already. So.
Okay, good. Don't worry. That's okay. Hey, I like the fact that great minds think alike, Jeremy, so I'm not giving you a hard time there. But, that's the one thing about you, man. The problem I have with you, sometimes you do read my mind pretty good. You really do. And I have zero problem with that, okay? So you're okay. All right, with that said, Coach Bono, what do you think about the Alabama-Detroit connection?
Well, I think it's, they roll deep in the NFL, not just the Detroit Lions. And I think there's reasons for that. I think when you're scouting, the program that a young man comes out of is very, it's influential in your decision making. The kids from Alabama are going to adjust easily because they're used to competing. Nobody there is given anything. At least under Saban, there were no sacred cows. You know, every position was up for grabs every single day, and that's the way it is in the NFL. They're not coddled. They understand how to work, and they're used to working. And because to go through that program and make it through the Alabama program, you're not going to skate your way through. There's no place to hide, and they're used to winning and they know how to win. So winning in the National Football League is not easy. It's very hard. The SEC is the most competitive conference in college football, and so therefore the jump isn't as great. So, again, it's a testament to Alabama. I think someone in that Lions organization they value all of the things that I just spoke about, and they might have somebody on the inside where they're able to get a little bit more information on the prospects than the average scout going through there. We all have those relationships, so it just depends on where they're at.
All right, Travis.
I mean, kind of everything that Coach and Jeremy said earlier is it's becoming I guess their pipeline. I don't even know what to call it. Like because this isn't even like where I'm reviewing film and I see this other guy jump off the tape and this is a great situation where I might just get this other guy in the 3rd, 5th, 6th round. We're taking all these guys early. This is every single one of these guys are 1st round picks, right? Like Jameson Williams, Jameer Gibbs, Brian Branch, Terry Arnold. These are 1st round picks or 1st round talents.
Yeah,
right?
Branch was 2nd round, but 1st round talent.
1st round talent, right? That's what I mean. Like these are guys you're still scouting your top 30 picks, and that's kind of where I'm looking at it. This is crazy. This is like, and you're seeing this not just with Detroit. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Like you see the Philadelphia Eagles, they do the same thing with the Georgia Bulldogs. The Jaguars, even in this past draft, did the same thing with LSU, and they ended up drafting 3 guys from there. Like sometimes it does occur in that way, but this is over multiple drafts where they've identified talent. They've identified that to Coach's point, there may be a smaller learning curve for these NFL talent going from the SEC, being some of the best players on their current teams. And it seems to be working out. I mean, I would argue that it's probably a hit on at least 3 of the 4 of these picks so far already. And you have the question, in my opinion, at least, with Jameson Williams. I mean, that he could potentially go either way. He could be a hit, or he can be on the Alec Pierce, growth track. So we'll see how that goes. But nevertheless, it seems to be a good plan. Good job, Detroit.
All right, let me just add one thing, and we'll close it out with Mel. Number one, Nick Saban, as we know, is a really, really good coach. Okay, putting it lightly, and all he does is win national championships. And when you come from a Nick Saban system, okay, to me, there's no question he produces tons of NFL players. The list goes on and on. So obviously, the Lions seem to have really found a vehicle to build their program, with Alabama as well as other programs. But most notably with these 4 coming in such a short period of time, you can see the Nick Saban effect. Mel Farr Jr. is going to close out the subject before we stay in the state of Alabama. Go ahead, Mel.
Well, anytime you have a program that's successful like Alabama has been over the number of years, and I think Coach hit the nail on the head. I mean, relationships obviously play a big part of it. Obviously, they have some relationships down there, some ties with Alabama, with the coaching staff. Somebody in their scouting department, high up in the scouting department, has a relationship there with either Nick or somebody else in the Alabama system. It's kind of similar to what Coach Belichick had, with Nick Saban. He had a very close relationship with him. He knew that Coach Saban would shoot it to him straight when he asked questions about players, and if you have a need, why not go with the recommendation, from somebody that you trust, that's somebody that he worked with and that he trusts. I remember, when I was playing with the Rams, they called us the UCLA Rams because we had 7 guys on the team from UCLA.
Right.
When you have a program that's doing good things, it's successful, there's a reason why they're successful. It's because they have good players. And sometimes those players end up on the same team, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially when you're filling a need.
Yeah. All right, we have another comment, Candy. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Hey, Daniel, glad to have you on the show. What's going on? Well, we're going on. All right. And with that said, as I have Candy, why don't you go to a station break?
This show is sponsored by the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company, where we actually published a book. The book is written by Scott Morganroth. Lessons from the Microphone, tuning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, Apple. Audiobook to come later this year. We also have a website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can read Jeremy's writings, Scott's writings. I take pictures. We have transcripts from the Dolphins, the Jags, the Lions, a lot of colleges, especially here in South Florida. You also can go to our store, which there's a link on our website, and you can go purchase South Florida Tribune merchandise as well as Motor City Madmouth merchandise. If you like to listen to podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can get Monday nights we talk baseball, Tuesday nights we talk football, Wednesday nights we talk sports exchange, we talk all sports, and Thursday nights Fire Up. Wednesday nights is also a special show that Scott does, Motor City Madmouth, where he interviews one-on-one. It's on nofilter.net. Tomorrow night, who's going to be the guest, Scott?
Well, right now I'm working on Mike Massaro from NASCAR is who I'm working on. We'll get everything finalized tomorrow. Motor City Madmouth show is something I really enjoy doing. I love doing all the shows, but the one-on-one interviews I have a whole lot of fun with, that's for sure. So I'm looking forward to doing that. Of course, tomorrow night we have the Sports Exchange as well, following the Motor City Madmouth show.
Exactly. If you see that red subscribe button, that means you have not subscribed to our channel. Please hit that red button. Share us, like us with all your friends, and support all the panelists on here with their respective shows or writings. Back to you, Scott.
All right. Also on Twitter, you can find us at Tribune South. Let's go to Kate's information there. She's really lively in the chat room. Now, while you're at it, Kate, what I'd like you to do is to put all your social media information, and everybody that's able to follow you will do their best to do it on Twitter as well as Instagram, which I know you're big at, and they can send you a friend request on Facebook as well. And we're working on getting their LinkedIn and Twitter up to speed. Put that up there. And Kate, please, thank you. So here's what Kate has to say. No one plays football like the South, no question about it. Being from the North, moving to the South, I saw firsthand the grind mindset these Southern schools athletes put in. Nick Saban trains physically, mentally, strong players with heart, killer combination. Well, you know what? I don't think I can have a better Alabama source than her. That's for sure, because she lives in Tuscaloosa. So there. Also, as always, she talks about the great my book, Great Multiple Reads. Well, not only that, what's so nice about Kate is the fact that she's gone out there, read it 3 times. She's a student. And Jeremy, you're shaking your head. So
not at her, at the burner account, using my picture saying it's my son.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's all right. Whatever you do, Jeremy, once she puts that information, follow her anyways. And Travis and Bo, if you're out there, please follow Kate as well. She's an up and comer, and I'm just trying to bring her along very slowly. She's my pupil at the moment. So, with that said, I think we've pretty much talked about it. Anybody else want to add to this at all before we move on to the next Alabama topic? Are we good? Okay. Skip Holtz. Anybody believe in a three-peat? He does. 2022, 2023 USFL, 2024 UFL. What are your thoughts about a three-peat in any sport? And we'll start you off with Mel Farr Jr.
Yeah, I mean, three-peats are tough in any sport. Hell, the repeat is tough. Winning the first time is tough. I mean, ask the Boston Celtics. I mean, it's been a tough road for them to get there. Winning a championship is very, very difficult. Wins, as Coach knows, are very difficult to come by. And when you can do it when you don't necessarily you don't really know what your personnel is going to be year in and year out in the USFL and the UFL. Heck, they had one quarterback who ended up starting the season. They ended up going with somebody else partway through the season, and that quarterback ended up being the most valuable player, and also was the most valuable player of the championship game as well. So I mean, so many things. It's a condensed season. You don't have the same structure as far as the off season is concerned. You don't have the same amount of time with these guys. When they leave, they're really trying to get another gig. They're not really focused on staying in the UFL or the USFL.
Right.
So it's tough to have that continuity that you have year in and year out when you're whether it's a college program or an NFL program. So it's impressive what he's been able to do. Obviously, he's a pretty good coach. He's a pretty good coach as far as the X's and O's are concerned, and it shows that he's been able to do it. Had that type of success over the last 3 years.
Yeah, he's won everywhere, but the only place he didn't win was at my alma mater, University of South Florida. He was under 500 at that stop, but he was over 500 everywhere else. Give me a break, Skip. You could have done something for the green and gold, the Brahmin Bulls, not the ones that you beat up badly on Sunday. But that said, by the way, let's put Kate's information up there so everybody can write it down that wants to. Okay, her Instagram is at Kate.HAITCH. Okay, so I have that little thing called an eye test here. And on Twitter, because my vision's awful anyways, at Twitter, just so you know, is at Aitchison, AITCHISON 56734. So you see it all there. If you can write it down, please go ahead, follow her. We're looking to help her build a following as well. We have a first period score. The Edmonton Oilers lead the Florida Panthers 1-0. So for those of you that are kind enough to watch the show, we'll give you some hockey updates along the way. All right. What do you think, Travis, about Skip Holtz?
I mean, he's he's done what Bill Belichick hasn't been able to do, or what Andy Reid hasn't been able to do. He won 3 in a row, man. And he did it in a dominating fashion at that. To win in a shutout championship game, probably not exactly what the fans want, obviously, but I mean, you want a competitive matchup. But at the end of the day, if I'm the coach, yeah, you want domination, and that's kind of what he put on tape. He didn't make it close. He's won in both leagues, and for a startup league, that's what you want. Like, you want to have the guys who are able to show discipline and are able to come out and just play execution, mistake-free football. And when you're trying to fight, because basically what this league is an everyday tryout. I mean, you're putting this is a resume on tape, and you're doing this for these NFL teams. So you want to be able to show that you can work within the scheme of an offense, work within a scheme of a defense, and play discipline-free football. And they are able to do that for a full season. And your coach is kind of just showing you the playbook at that point. So, like, he's helping these adults out, and he's also helping to solidify his legacy in the meantime. So I'm sure they respect and love him for it. And at the same time, he's just racking up these wins and just building this little Nick Saban-esque program. Good stuff, man.
All right, so here I got to do this here. Okay. All right. First of all, not everybody's rooting for the Panthers. Okay. Kate is actually from Canada, so she's rooting for the Oilers. Okay. There you go. Yeah, and yes, Joshua Dorr, I'll be more than happy to give you clarity. Jeremy has worked his way back into my good graces, and now he's able to. Well, he does, but I love Jeremy. He's come a long way in my system. He really has. And one thing, whenever he's called upon, the man shows up. So, yeah, I have no problem bringing a guy on when you make a mistake and you learn from it, right, Jeremy? Isn't that what learning is all about?
Absolutely.
And, yeah, so you know what? I don't mind having him on. He's pinch hitting tonight for Bo, and he'll be on from time to time. And, in fact, if you want to see him on Thursday, I'll be on there with him. But the only difference is on that Thursday night show, okay, to me, it's not a country club the way Candy runs it. It's a, what do you call it, boot camp. Just kidding, so it's a different way. I'm not Sergeant Carter, by the way.
It's not the country club. It's the county fair. Get it right.
What do you mean county? Wait. Ballrick, who you calling a county for? With me? You calling me?
No, Thursday night. It isn't the country club. It's the county fair.
All right. Well, if that's what you and Candy want to call it, that's okay. I don't really care. But with me, it's boot camp. I'm not Sergeant Carter, by the way. I'm better looking. Okay. But anyways.
But I
don't know if I should have said that, but all right, whatever. That's what happens when you get gray instead of nay. All right, so yeah, he gave you the dog check salute. I've always supported Jerry, but I thought he'd never be back. Joshua Dorr. Okay, here's the thing. I'm a firm believer that, to me, okay, never say never, and that's what it is. By the way, unfortunately, we have some breaking news that I have to bring up. Hall of Famer Willie Mays has died at the age of 93. So, yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there. So I never say never. Joshua Dorr, it may come across at times I might be a little hard and stubborn, and I apologize for nothing because I've been doing it a certain way for 44 years. But if people do things in good faith, they'll do well if they learn from their mistakes, and I always love bringing people back. Can I comment on rocket scientist? Well, you know what, Joshua Dorr, I know a lot of people by now, if you haven't heard, okay, rocket scientist made a comment on Inside or 108 Stitches baseball talk, in the chat where he looked at it. Now, if you're going to ask me to do it, I'll do it. Okay. To me, about me being a communist dictator. And I'm going to tell you right now, okay, that is one thing you just don't call me. Okay. For those people that go out there and realize who I am, communist dictator isn't what you want to do. So if rocket scientist wants to come out there and get out of my doghouse, I'll issue him the ultimate challenge. Okay. I will give him the challenge is this. If that guy can go ahead and come on a show and face the music instead of sitting in a chat room, hiding behind getting punched relentlessly, then maybe he'll have a chance to make a comeback. But right now, the way I look at it, Joshua Dorr, you've been a friend of mine for a long time and some of the other ones. But unfortunately, Jeremy, tell him what it's like to call me a communist dictator.
You might as well have called him a racist.
Yeah, right?
I mean, he's not a dictator. Can he be a totalitarian at times? Absolutely, because he wants it his way. But he's not a dictator.
Well, no, true. I'm not. We have a structured way that we go about doing things. And you know what? We enjoy having fresh people, a lot of people in the show, as long as they've done something very good and not demeaning. I don't care if it's a joke or not. Anything that comes in this chat room, as long as it's ethical, polite, and not demeaning, right, Coach Bonamigo, then we will.
Absolutely right.
Right. So we don't deal with that. So he said, communist leader, not dictator. Let me tell you something, pal. Okay. I wouldn't classify, okay, Adolf Hitler, okay, and what do we have? Adolf Hitler, Fidel Castro being communist leader as anybody in American history is going to go out there and be a role model after. So I don't want to turn this into an all-night deal here, trying to talk about rocket scientists. But the reality is there's a door that's open if he's smart enough to take advantage of it. And if you're going to go out there and ball bust and put somebody down, you better be able to take it. That's all I'm saying. Right now, to me, rocket scientist looks like a chicken with his head cut off right now. But, maybe there's a chance chicken will have his head back on at a later date. But you don't ever call anybody a communist leader. And I do remember the word, dictator as well. So let's, so is he banned from the chat? Well, I haven't banned him yet. So, the way I look at it is we are going to move off the subject. Okay. But you want to know where he stands? He knows how to get a hold of me, but he'll tell you one thing. We offer top flight entertainment. We all work our butts off to research these topics and make sure that everybody on these shows can benefit. And that's where I'm going to leave it there. Is he banned from the chat? He will be if he goes ahead and steps out of line one more time. There's an opening, but I think the wisest thing before we do it is it would be good for him to show up and be able to face the music. And we'll even go ahead and put it in Pundit 101, since you roasted Jacob Christner one time, and we'll put him in that show. It's just a one-on-one with the Motor City Man Mouth and the rocket scientist, who to me, well, he didn't look too rocket scientist that night. He looked like Sergeant Schultz. He didn't know anything. There you go. Although I love Hogan's Hero. Okay, go ahead, Jeremy. One more thing before we continue on.
In the doghouse.
so all right. Well, so as we talk about Skip Holtz, all right, Coach. Who did now that Joshua Dorr did an unbelievable job? Okay, throwing me out. Who hasn't talked about this yet?
Coach,
go ahead.
I think Skip's done it. Skip's obviously done a phenomenal job. Like Mel said, to win one is great. To win two's really hard. To win three, especially three in a row, you just don't. How many other franchises have done that in any sport? So I think Skip has proven himself. He's made the best of the situation that he's in. I think obviously he'd probably still love to be at South Florida. He'd love to have the reins of a major college football program. Love to be coaching in the NFL. I think he should be on everybody's short list. If I'm a college AD and I'm looking, I'm thinking about making a change in December, Skip Holtz would be on the top of my list of people to at least sit down and talk to. I think he's earned that, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see something like that happen once the new cycle kicks into gear.
Can he coach basketball? My Lakers need a coach. Can he coach basketball?
Yeah, right. That was good. That was good. Yeah, I guess they're going after JJ Redick, but I'll put my cards on Skip Holtz all day long. The only thing I'll say is Skip Holtz is a legend in Birmingham now that they got a three-peat down there. And you know what they should do? MLB should do now that they're having that game. They should have him throw out the first pitch actually over at this game here at MLB. That's what I really think they should do. So, why not? I mean, he's won 3 championships there. Outside of collegiate, he's proven that you can do some good stuff in the pro. Travis, you already commented on this, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, good. We'll move on. Hey, Joshua Dorr, we do appreciate you coming in the chat room tonight. So, but we'll, the conditions, and we'll see what happens. Jeremy, anything else you want to add before we go on to the obvious topic that you were going to bring up earlier?
Well, no, I didn't get to talk about Skip Holtz. It was
good. Now you get to do it. Okay, go ahead.
Skip Holtz. Want to talk about a pedigree? Who's he related to?
Lou Holtz's son.
Right. So, that I think coaching's in the genes. That's it. And the only reason why he didn't win one in South Florida is I don't think he was long enough there to turn that roster over enough to make it his team. That's the only thing I see.
Well, he was there only 3 years. I'll give you that. But the problem, Jeremy, that they had was they were 8-5. And then they won 5 games, and then they won 3. So they were going in the wrong direction. I get it where you're coming from. Anytime, and I know my university pretty well. And, if you got no university. But, yeah, I think they got a little impatient up there. But I'll tell you, he went out there, and he certainly made the most of the opportunity. You know what? We'll keep Jeremy in play here right now. The Lions did land Michigan Panthers kicker Jake Bates to a 2-year deal. Jeremy, I guess it's probably the worst kept secret on the planet, right?
Yeah, considering I knew about it since Friday that the deal was imminent. I mean, they brought him in on Tuesday for his interview, and there was rumors that there was supposedly to be a deal done, but they had to wait for the championship game to be played before they could ink anything. So they couldn't ink anything till Sunday the 16th. And lo and behold, it's a $1.98 million 2-year deal with $150,000 guaranteed and $100,000 signing bonus up front. So $250K went in his account. He's going to get some sizable game checks, way better than the UFL could pay him. And he's in the stadium where he was 100%. I mean, and everybody's like, well, is he going to be any better than Badgley this year? I said, well, considering that 14 of our 17 games are either in a dome or a retractable roof stadium, I think he'll be all right.
Good observation, Jeremy. All right, Coach. You coach in that stadium.
What was the signing bonus, Jeremy?
150,000.
Okay, so that's what he's guaranteed. Outside of that,
and 100,000. So 250.
100,000 for what?
Is the signing bonus on top of that?
Okay, so that's really what they've got invested in him, and if he makes it, then that's great. I think it's a great story. There's still going to be competition. He's not the only kicker on the roster right now. He still's got to beat out Michael Badgley. Badgley is a veteran. Where this kid's what he's gonna have to do in order to make the roster is show that he can consistently make all of his kicks, really from the 35-yard line on in. So it's great to be able to bang the 60-yarders, the long ones, but those just don't come up very often in the National Football League because of the amount of field position. They make sense at the end of the half, end of the game, but man. The field position that you're trading if you don't make that kick it's a big gamble. That said, it's really a huge advantage and a big gun, to have that big gun in your back pocket, and know that you have the ability to kick that long one when you need to. But for me personally, I want the guy that's going to never miss. I'll sacrifice 5 yards in distance for a guy that's going to be 95% versus take a guy that might have a bigger leg, but it's going to only be good 75% of the time. Close to, if you look at the statistics over the last 15, 20 years, like almost 25% of the games in the National Football League are decided by 3 points or less. So a missed field goal at any point during the game could be the difference between winning and losing, especially when you're in what everybody considers makeable field goal range. So that's tremendous that they signed him. Very happy for him. Wish him the best, but he's not out of the woods yet. He's still got to unseat that veteran.
Yeah. Now, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, you're probably on top of this a little bit more than I am. Didn't Turner get released today?
Yeah, Turner was waived today, and the reason why is he had less than half of the days where everybody was glowing about him, where he didn't have a miss on the field from 52 yards deep, but he had 3 days that was absolutely awful. What he was really good at, and if we weren't able to get a deal done with Bates, I think he would have been on the roster even if we kept Badgley, because what he was able to do with the new kicking rules, he was 92% accurate on landing in the landing zone for the kickoffs, which that's going to be a huge boon to get people. If they muff it and it rolls into the end zone, they start on the 20.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Travis.
Well, it's interesting because it seems like the Lions maybe or maybe looking for an opportunity to go opposite of what they were in 2023, because they had Riley Patterson, and then they had Michael Badgley towards the end of the season. Again, these are solid kickers who simply struggles kicking past the 50, like 50 yarders and longer. Like they kind of really struggled to do with it, to the point where the Lions generally would just go for it at that point because they don't really have confidence that they're going to make it on those longer field goals. Now we have a situation where they're signing someone who can boot it out the back of the, from the other 40 at this point. I don't even know, as a potential option, and that changes the calculus a little bit. So like, I know most teams would normally say, yeah, no, I want that guy who's going to make 80% of his field goals, and even if I can't kick a 55-yarder. Meanwhile, they've seen that, they've done that, they know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two, and they kind of feel like maybe they need someone that they can win a game with a 60-yarder. It's going to be interesting though, because we all know, if you've been around NFL teams or even college teams, kickers are fickle creatures. I can't even say people. They're kickers. They'll go through a slump because the wind blew left that day. Like, I don't know, man. Like, so it's going to be interesting to see how consistent he is going to be throughout training camp, because as we all know, with any other position, $150,000 is peanuts when you're talking guaranteed money. That's open competition type money, especially when you're talking that Bagley's guaranteed money is $450,000. So this is truly going to be an open competition. We'll see kind of where it lands. I guess good luck.
Well, you're right. I mean, all of this is a low risk move, but boy, a good low risk move. You didn't have to go very far to scout the guy. All he is playing at Ford Field, so it's not like they had to. How much expense money do you think they needed to go ahead and scout him at Ford Field? I would say maybe a few steps on your pedometer, and that's about it. All right, and we'll let Mel wrap up the topic. Go ahead.
I mean, I think the kid, obviously, what he needed was opportunities. I mean, the guy hasn't kicked. He was a soccer player. I think he switched over to play football, whether it was his senior year in high school or at some point in time, and he never kicked field goals. And in college, he was at 2 schools that he went to. He was just a kickoff guy because he had a strong leg. And so all he's going to do is continue to get better, I think. And I think this is a good acquisition for the Lions, because anytime you have an opportunity, when you're in a situation, you can try out and he can nail them from that type of distance. That's a big advantage. That means to get in field goal range, you don't have to move the ball down the field that much. I mean, you can just get to the other side of the 40-yard line on your side of the 50, but just get to the other side. You've got a chance. And that's a huge advantage for an offense, knowing that as opposed to having to get to the other 40, that all you have to do is just get somewhere on the other side of your own 40, and you have an opportunity to steal a ball game, and that's essentially what you're going to do. You're going to steal a ball game when the guy has a leg like that. So I think it's, the guy needed some reps, and he got an opportunity to get some reps, and he started out real hot early. I think he missed a few field goals along the line, but obviously he's going to have to continue to work on his accuracy. But again, this is all new to him. The guy was a soccer player, strong leg, kicked in college at 2 schools, but never was a kicker, never did the field goals or extra points. He was always just a kickoff guy. So he's just going to continue to get better. And as he gets some better coaching, the guy's going to continue to get better. So I think it's a great pickup for him. It makes all the sense in the world.
Well, the one thing I want to mention, then I have a
except for the fact that Dan Campbell doesn't, he really doesn't like to kick the ball.
That's funny.
Well, that may be because of his kickers, though. That's the part that we.
Well, he doesn't like the punt or kick. So I don't know.
All right, so you know what? Here's the thing about that we have to understand with Bates. He played in 11 games this year. Guess what? He's getting 17 and eventually 18. So I have a quick question for Coach Bono only, okay? And that's this. Do you think, okay, Coach, that the NFL should adapt all of the kickoff rules of the UFL? I actually liked it, what the USFL had. Or do you think the NFL is just too purist that they're going to stick with what they have and see what they can do?
Thing that we have to remember is this is a trial year for the rule, so they're giving themselves a year. There's going to be some give and take. I like the fact that they made it their own. They're the top dog. They don't have to really, but I think they've got a good formula. Again, I think it's going to take some getting used to as a fan.
You like the new kickoff rule, Coach?
I do. I like it, but Mel, as opposed to the alternative of taking the play out of the game, because that's.
I think
that's where things were headed. Don't
you think if you would penalize the kicking team for kicking it through the end zone or in the end zone, that you could achieve the same thing, which is more kickoffs? You want more kickoff returns. That's what you want.
Well, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing.
That's what they're doing.
Pardon me?
That's what they're doing. If you kick a touchback, the ball's coming out to the 35.
That's not.
They needed more. They needed more kickoffs, but less concussions. That was the kicker.
Right.
It's been that way. If the 35, they'll deal with it. They're still kicking the ball out of the end zone.
It was the 25 on touchbacks.
Oh, now it's the 35. It probably needs to be the 45.
Well, I think honestly, we could talk a whole hour on this subject. Where they're going to, what's going to be interesting is when you get into like the weather games. When it's really windy and all of that stuff. And the 35 is not a deal. There's still going to be situations where you think tactically it's not. Don't even give them. You're still going to kick the ball out. And give them the ball on the 35. But the 35. When you did get a kickoff return to the 35, we always considered that like anything across the 25 was good. You helped your team. As a special teams coordinator, you're selling that to your team. This is the first offensive play of every series.
Right.
Let's set the table for the offense and let them eat. And then, a couple times a year, let's trot the extra point team out there and kick an extra point because we did a great job. But man, I'm excited to watch it. Again, it keeps the play in the game. It keeps it a relevant play. Okay. And I think those are all positive things. And it's going to be a markedly safer play. It's going to be safer than a punt play now because the guys aren't running as far. You're not going to have the, all the hamstrings and the soft tissue stuff.
Okay. All right, let me go to the chat room real quick. I have another update here with the Stanley Cup. Edmonton Oilers now 2, the Florida Panthers nothing. So the Oilers, who beat the Panthers on Saturday 8-1, Their offense is starting to get in gear a little bit. Detroit fan, man, I never seen you before, but I hope I see you more often. And if you haven't subscribed to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, where we also house a lot of Jeremy stuff, please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We would totally appreciate you very much if you did that. Now to your comment. Seems like the league's best tackling kicker is someone now more important than the most accurate kicker. New rules have changed position. All right, anybody want to comment on that?
I actually do, because
okay,
and it kind of coincides with the next question too that Kate asked, because
okay.
you actually listen to how they worded it. If you hit it short of that 20 to the goal line landing zone and don't give the receivers a chance to catch it, it's the same as kicking it out of bounds. It starts at the 40. If you kick it through the back of the end zone, it starts at the 35. If you kick it into the landing zone and the receiving team doesn't catch it and it doesn't roll out of bounds, but it hits the end zone, as soon as it hits the end zone, it comes out to the 20. The 25 is eliminated. So it's either the 20, the 35, or the 40. And they structured it that way on purpose to give it a more of an accuracy thing for those kickers. But the way they line up, the kickers are not going to be doing the tackling unless they get past everybody. Because you got your kicker in the center, then you got your 10 defenders up at the 40-yard line, and all the blockers are at the 35. So and then your receivers are in between the 20 and the goal line waiting to receive the two. So
is it still a live ball?
Pretty much, it's not a live ball until it's caught.
If it hits the ground inside the
landing zone, it is live. Yeah, at that point.
Is it so the onside kick that's no more?
You have to declare your onside kick.
The onside kick's going to go back to the old rules, Mel, but you can only do it within the last 2 minutes of the game.
So you have to declare it. So you have to be declared. So everybody knows it's coming.
And it has to be declared. Yep.
What's eliminated really is the surprise onside kick.
Yeah,
it eliminated the Pat McAfee play.
That's part of Dan Campbell's coaching book right there, man.
Yeah, right. Hey, Mel, I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, let's face the reality. We can sugarcoat this whole thing all we want. But you know what? I'm going to piggyback right off of Mel. Dan Campbell does not believe in kickers. He just doesn't. And maybe he's got one, which might be a luxury. Okay, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just about to say Detroit Bandman's comment that he just stated.
I do have one thing to add about Badgley. While we sit there and say, can he be more accurate within the 35? Badgley wasn't accurate within the 35 last year. He missed 4 field goals within the 35-yard line in Ford Field, and he also missed 6 extra points.
Well, if he was a great kicker, they wouldn't be so anxious to sign this.
Right? No, he's struggling.
The only thing I'm saying is the kid still has to make the team. You're not just competing against the guys that are on your roster. You're competing against everybody on everybody else's roster that might end up hitting the street. I've seen that happen plenty of times.
All right, here. You know what? I got a solution to this whole thing. You ready? I got one here. It is what it is. Of course, now Joshua Dorr disappeared for it. But for whatever it's worth, if he did disappear for it, Joshua Dorr, you're watching the Oilers lead the Panthers 3-0. But I can solve the whole situation, okay? Bring back Gus the Mule. That was rated G many years ago. That guy, until you went out there and gave him a bunch of beer and put another mule in, Gus the Mule would kick him from 100 yards away. That was all they had going. Bring back Gus the Mule. Okay. That time Motors City Madmouth ran from yesteryear at that time. So, all right. So as we continue, all right, let's go to TT. I think is that who it is there? Will it touch back, put you back at 25? I'm not keeping track of them as much. Okay. So just, you say no. All right. That's good enough.
Yeah, the 25 eliminated.
Okay. That's fine. Let's go through them really quickly. So the KC state coach claimed he reviewed all XFL kickoff. Jeremy, read it. My eyes are going bad. Read it.
So the Kansas City special teams coach claimed he reviewed all the XFL kickoff tape, and the kicker was at least involved in the tackling on 25 to 45% of all plays. Meanwhile, NFL athletes are better, so likely more impact. So it's 10 on 9 in the blocking until the ball's caught.
Right. One kicker said he put on some muscle. He put on some weight because he felt he's going to have to be involved more in the tackling game.
Right. Yeah. And That may be.
And this was something that we discussed with the Jaguars coaching staff, with the Jaguars special teams coordinator also, Heath Farwell, because this was the week that the Kansas City special teams coordinator made this comment, and he stated that they were even having, they had a few athletes on the Jaguars, their safeties. Andre Cisco had raised his hand wanting to recommend himself to do kickoffs, and they're trying to kind of have that same conversation because so many kickoffs could involve the kicker, and you don't want to get your kicker injured because you normally only roster one of those guys in the season. So this is an interesting kind of conversation because it kind of does become a modified punt return in a lot of ways. So those teams with the best punt returners might have a pretty good competitive advantage, you know.
Yeah, and now I also want to clarify my Gus comment. It is Gus the Mule. So go out there, since everybody has Google on the planet, just look up Gus the Mule, and I guarantee you, they're definitely going to have some interesting footage from that. I don't know what YouTube picked up. And that was one of those movies. That was one of those deals here that I went out there and watched a lot of times. Gus the Mule kicking it. My goodness. And you know what? I'm going to mention something else here. Now we're talking about mules. Never thought we'd go off about me talking about Gus the Mule. But I'm going to go back to my University of South Florida days, in my communication department. You know what this is? We had a game here called the USF Communications Department against us, the people in it. And I was a manager one year, and we ended up winning it. But you know what? We had a mascot dog named Chubber. Get this, Chubber, okay? And Chubber was drinking so much beer that dog was spinning all over the place. Oh, I felt bad for the dog. But I don't think he felt very bad drinking all that beer that his owner, Todd, here had. I'm telling you, that was the best doggy buzz I've ever seen. I had to put it up there. Okay, so with that said, yeah, it was Gus and Mule to put it in there. So, hey, you know what? Another thing that came to mind, we could put Flubber in the ball too. I don't even care, whatever. I'm glad, but all nice for Coach Bono to be on. We're really hitting special teams hard, aren't we, Coach? Aren't we doing good? Yeah. All right. We got into Hard Knocks, but guess what? We're going to do it now. Okay, so the expansion of HBO Hard Knocks is going to be broken down into three franchises over the next 6 months. Okay, first of all, in the offseason, you had the New York Giants, and in training camp, you got Chicago Bears, and in season, you got the AFC North. We'll try to, do the abbreviated version here. Okay. First of all, Mel, what are your thoughts about the New York Giants in the offseason?
New York Giants?
Yeah.
Did they do something exciting? Did they do
exactly. Something? Yeah, they did something so exciting that they went out there and put them in the offseason.
I mean, nobody's been talking about the Giants, have they? I mean, they let their best player get out of there. Their quarterback is coming back from injury, and I think there's a big question mark with the Giants in that division this year, along with the Cowboys. They've got some issues as well that they have to deal with. Quarterback and wide receiver, they got some challenges on there. But I mean, I really haven't been paying much attention to what the Giants have been doing. Really, just kind of anxious to see, how this team is going to perform this year with, Daniel Jones healthy. I know their tight end just retired. Waller just decided that he's going to retire. I think that's a pretty big loss, although he hasn't been the healthiest the last number of years. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I know they got some guys on the defensive side of the ball, but it's going to be interesting to see what they're able to do on the offensive side of the ball. It's hoopla and fanfare around what they were able to accomplish the first year of Dayball's coaching career. And it's going to be interesting to see what they're able to put together here in his third year. The second year wasn't so great. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in his third year, because he could, undoubtedly be on the hot seat.
Yeah. All right. So let's transition. Everybody's going to tackle all three at one time. Mel, we'll let you talk training camp with the Chicago Bears. Do you think it's a good idea with them during training camp?
What's that?
Hard Knocks and training camp.
The
Bears.
I don't watch it that much. I did watch it that one time with the Lions, and I said watching it gave me a greater appreciation for Dan Campbell. I mean, I think it's good for the average fan to have an opportunity to kind of see what goes on during a training camp and get an opportunity to get to know some of the players. Obviously, football has done the NFL has done a very, very, very good job of marketing their league.
Right.
This is just another way to get fans engaged and to market their league, to get eyeballs to the television sets and get them ready for the season. So, I can't really question what they've done, because what they've done has been extremely successful, and it's grown the product.
Okay, last one to talk about there for you, Mel, is in season, the AFC North. How you like Hard Knocks focusing on a division?
They're focusing on what, the AFC
North.
East? The North. I think that's a great division. I mean, that's a headache division there. I think that's a great division. You got some great, you got some great coaches in that division. You got some new coaches there. You got some teams that really think that they're Super Bowl contenders. I think probably all but one team thinks they have an opportunity to do something to make some noise in the playoffs. I don't think New England really thinks it. Are they in the East? No, they're in the East. They're in the East.
Yes,
So,
Ravens, Bengals, Browns, and Steelers.
So,
right.
So you got four teams that really think they can probably make some noise, especially with Joe Burrow coming back. It's going to be interesting. I think it's great. I like it. And anytime you can get an opportunity to listen to Mike Tomlin, have him mic'd up, I think that's great as well.
Okay. All right. We're going to Travis Holmes. You know the drill. We got 3 franchises in 6 months. We're going to talk about the Giants, and you're going to do the Bears. You're going to do the North. Go ahead, Travis.
I got you. So I can look at this from 2 ways, and I'm going to try my best to be unbiased on it.
All right.
Looking at this from the offseason perspective for Hard Knocks, for the Giants, they were smart to choose the Giants because they know nobody kind of cares about them. But at the same time, you're also in the huge market in New York, and you're covering the offseason where it's normally the deadest of dead times. It's the underwear Olympics that you're kind of covering. So if you're going to have a team where you're covering the underwear Olympics, why not be in a great market where you're probably just going to get eyes on it because of that purpose? Cool. I understand why you chose it. It's the hustle, and NFL's the biggest pimp of all pimps, and they're getting this product out there. Good job. But then we're talking about training camp with the Bears, and that was a really solid decision. That's a moderately, they built that team up, and a rookie quarterback. That's something that a lot of people have interest in, probably even curiosity, especially when you get the gambling fantasy community involved. That's going to be something that you're going to probably just get a lot of eyes on it just based on that period. And then to follow that up, following the AFC North, I personally, as a fan of the sport, don't like the fact that they did it with the 3 different, following one team in the offseason, one team in training camp, a division in the in-season piece, because I would prefer them just to do it all with one team. I want to follow that storyline. You start getting into really feeling like the players. You can start feeling like you're really in that story, if that makes sense. This is going to be a little bit different because now with the in-season format, you're going to be able to follow multiple teams all season long, and you'll get a little bit of a snippet of the story, but you won't be able to really follow along with those, down the roster guys, and can just start really getting into the real storyline. So because of that, I might be a little bit more out in that piece, but it's an interesting thought process. I will acknowledge that, following a whole division, you're going to get a lot of stuff that you just generally wouldn't have. But I personally, the Jaguars have their series called The Hunt, and they do a really good job following the team, and they do it in season and training camp and everything else. And I would prefer if all teams kind of did it that way. I think it's a much better system overall. But NFL keeps peddling the product, and people are going to eat it up because it is what it is. That's NFL is king.
Okay, let's go back to the chat room. Feather Freebird, hi guys. B. Okay, nice to see you. Of course, update NHL. Oilers 3, Panthers 1. Panthers have scored a goal. And, of course, beautiful here in the Pacific Northwest. Don't get me started on the Pacific Northwest. I love the place. Seattle's great. Been to Oregon, too. Been to Multnomah Falls, Port Townsend, you name it. Pacific Northwest is great. I'd love to go back there and take my wife out there. RXJ, I agree with Mel. It's good for the casual fans. No question about it. No debating that at all. Keep it coming in the chat room. Okay. All right. We'll move on to Jeremy. Go ahead. You know the drill. I'll save my voice. Go ahead. You got the Giants, Bears, AFC North. Go ahead.
Okay. With the Giants, there is some news that broke today. They added the rushing leader from the UFL to the roster, Jacob Sailors. They also had 2 injuries in the depleted wide receiver room. Second year UDFA, Bryce Ford Wheaton suffered a shoulder injury and may not make it back before camp. And then Chase Cota, that was a Lions preseason favorite last year and everybody was hoping would make the team, is injured and headed to the IR. So he's basically done.
So Jeremy, they played what 10 games in the UFL, and then he's going to play 17 games in the NFL.
No, I know they
How many
still
more?
got guys ahead of him. He's
I
going to be
understand
the
that.
RB3 or 4 because they don't have Saquon Barkley. They drafted Eric Gray last year, who was more of an all-around back, a little better receiver than Saquon was. And then they also added a speed guy. So they're just adding somebody for depth. You got to have depth. If you're just going to have 2 running backs with a 1A, 1B run by committing type of thing, somebody's going to get hurt.
I get what you're saying, Jeremy. All I'm saying is you naming random NPCs right now, bro. Like you just naming players. Like they're real people, and I understand it. But really, in the in the scope of the NFL season, we're just naming names at this point, man.
Yeah, right. And Jeremy, let me just point one thing out to you. Okay, I want to just try to keep the show flowing as well as I can. Okay, I'm not worried about I'm not worried about Giants transactions. I'm only interested at the moment about them being featured in the off season right now on Hard Knocks as well. Let's just try to please keep the tone that way. Okay.
High level.
No, we talked about Giants and it came up. It's
okay, no problem. It's okay. So,
but anyways, I think it's good for them. They did make a few key off-season additions, and you're going to see some growth. Will Daniel Jones do better with better weapons at his 1, 2, and 3 than he's had his entire career? Will he do better with Brian Daboll versus Joe Judge? Okay. Well, we already saw that happen once. They made the playoff. He has a 1% better completion percentage as a career than Trevor Lawrence. He has 4 more touchdowns. He has 2 less interceptions. So there is that, and a 1.2 better QBR.
Not do the last 2 years.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about training camp, Jeremy, with the Chicago Bears.
I hope it'll be as good for them as it was for the Lions, but I think with as many rookies on the team in key positions, it could become a distraction.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay. And now the final in-season AFC North, you like the choice or not?
I do and I don't. I agree with Travis. I like the way they did it with the Arizona Cardinals after the Lions were done, and you got to see a lot more in depth about what the new coach was doing there. And now it's going to bounce around. You're not going to get as in depth. You're not going to get that one-on-one where you can endear to a certain player on each team or a certain coach. It's going to be watered down.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Coach. You know the 3 scenarios off season.
Yeah. You know, I don't know that I can add anything. Here's the point that I would like to make. You know, the big thing is that they're expanding. They've expanded Hard Knocks, and you know they're essentially giving the people what they want, because ever since Hard Knocks started, people have ate it up. And why? Because, like Mel said, you know, the casual fan, the fans get to see behind the curtain. They get to see what's going on as that team prepares, you know, for the season, as they make their way through training camp. They always make stories out of that. They'll select a handful of players that are always on that fringe of, you know, getting cut, and they kind of follow them, and that adds drama to the show. And to Travis's point, they are the biggest pimp. They've monetized every aspect of, you know, the off season that they could possibly do. You know, look at, you know, the draft is a big deal. You know, combines, coverage, you know, all of that stuff. You even have networks that have teams' pro days on televised and that sort of thing. And it's because the NFL is the number 1 sport in America. People love it. They can't get enough of it. So it's only natural if they can add a team, you know, and follow them in the offseason. And now they're taking a whole division and opening that up. It's, you know, the fans are going to eat it up. People are going to watch it. I can tell you, you know, that the teams themselves, they don't like it. You know, it's a booby It's a booby prize. You don't volunteer to be on Hard Knocks. You get told you're going to.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And the reason it's a booby prize is because the staffs, the scouting departments, the likelihood that you are going to inadvertently divulge some strategic information. I mean, I remember one time that there was a clear view of the draft board or their depth, like Dallas, I think it was, their draft board was on television on one of the shows just for a brief second, but it was enough for every single team in the league to screenshot that and know exactly how they had those players ranked. And so, let alone someone might say something or a player may divulge something about a game plan or whatever, or injury. Everybody tries to keep that injury information as close to the vest as possible because if I know if I truly know a player's not going to play, that's going to affect my game planning. It's going to affect your game planning. So again, it's a booby prize for the team, but who wins? The fans win. And when the fans win, that only generates more money. And in Travis's quote, the pimp gets the money. So I'll leave it at that. I think it is what it is. It's entertainment and entertainment to the max.
All right, let me go to the chat room real quick. I'll give an opinion on it. We have one more topic to get to. There will be no parting shots tonight. Wheaton was a solid wide receiver at West Virginia. Chase Cota Lions legend, LOL. Okay, that's fine. Another hockey update. Oilers 4, Panthers 2. So we'll keep you posted on that progress. So here's what we've got here. The offseason with New York Giants, what do you got to lose? Number one, it's the number one media market in the country. You got to be able to put them in there. Training camp, the Chicago Bears certainly are an interesting story. I'll give you 2 words, Caleb Williams. That's what everybody wants to see anyhow. And then 3, in-season AFC North, what do they call that, the black and blue division? Well, okay, we'll see. These teams beat up on each other. They got a lot of good sound. I have a feeling that every year they're going to do something deviate. But again, let's come down to one thing. The NFL is king of marketing, and that's it, period. Okay, whether you have a mule kicking the football, a regular person, it doesn't matter. NFL's king in that department. Why did I mention that, Ellie? Because I felt like it. Okay. So with that said,
the NFC North is the black and blue division.
Well, I guess the AFC wants, but you know what, Coach? The AFC likes to go ahead and make claim that they are too. But I do agree with you. The NFC North is the black and blue division, but don't tell that
it's the original black and blue division.
Right, exactly. Yeah, all those North teams want to consider net black and blue, and the competition's pretty good. But either way, who cares? It's division. I think the division's interesting because you have 4 perspective. But I like your logic, Coach. I really do. All right. Well, you know what? We're not talking about Tua Tagovailoa. You know what we're going to talk about next? We're going to talk about Talia Tagovailoa, Tua's brother, who's signing with the Canadian Football League. Yes. Kate, if you're out there somewhere, unless you're watching hockey, we have a CFL sighting. So Talia, okay, is signing with the CFL's Hamilton Tiger Cats, the practice squad, by the way. Don't get too excited, all right? He went undrafted. Maryland is Big Ten's all-time leader in passing yards with 11,256 over a 4-year run. That's a Terrapin Steiner. All right, you know what? We're going to go back to Coach Bono. We'll flip the script a little bit. What are your thoughts about the other Tua playing in Canada?
I think that's probably where he belongs. I mean, I have a lot of faith in the scouting departments across the NFL. They don't leave many stones unturned. Kid was a great college football player, but obviously 32 teams passed on him, and the next best league for him would be the CFL. And he'll have an opportunity to prove himself there. And if he can do that, maybe at some point he'll have an opportunity in the NFL. Great family, from what I know, top shelf kid character-wise. So there wasn't any issues with that in terms of like behind the scenes. I wish him the very best.
All right, Jeremy.
Well, he did get signed as a UDFA to Seattle, but he didn't cut the mustard. The other UDFA beat him out for the QB3 position. Okay. So, therefore, when they waived him and nobody picked him up, as the coach said, 31 teams said, I don't want you either. So that means he needs some seasoning. And if you actually look at how he played there, he did have some decision-making issues at times. He has the tendency to hold the ball too long, which allowed the pocket to collapse and coverage sacks to happen. So he needs to get better at that. And that no better way than to have an extra yard before the defensive line can get to you in the CFL to help you develop a read and react QB situation.
Yeah, CFL is a good brand of football. Whether they have 3 downs versus 4, you have a wider field. You'll develop the passing game real quick. I'll turn. I have one thing I want to add, and then I'm going to go ahead and mention. Ever heard of Warren Moon? Started in Canada, worked out pretty well. I'll leave it at that. Anybody else want? Yeah, Warren Moon did great. Then he ended up at the Houston Oilers, and he followed his coach Hugh Campbell, and all they did was win 5 great Cup championships. But at that time, the Edmonton Eskimos. See, my fans in Canada, I do follow the CFL much more than you think.
Kurt Warner.
Yeah. In fact, one of my late friends, let him rest in peace, Frank Lodato, what used to be he was an actual trainer and psychologist in Canada, and I met Frank. We had a lot of great times when I met him over at an FAU game. So, rest in peace, Frank. We're talking about Canada, and but I think that this is the best. I agree with Coach Tolia. Good move going up to Canada, and I'm sure you'll make your way to the NFL at some point. At least you'll get reps. All right, Travis, what do you think?
I mean, it's possible. I'm not going to say I have full confidence and he's going to make his way back up to the NFL. I think that's a little too far over the line at this current moment, at least. He got signed to a practice squad in the CFL. It's not even like he's got signed to the active roster. He's going to be on the CFL practice squad where he has time to develop to maybe be a adequate starter in the CFL to then maybe have to work his way up to just becoming to fighting for an NFL roster, maybe, next season or later in the season, something along those lines. To Jeremy's earlier point, he was initially in the Seattle Seahawks rookie minicamp where he got beat out. And he also got invited to the Arizona Cardinals rookie minicamp where he just wasn't signed after their rookie minicamp. That was before he signed in to the CFL. So for a guy who went to Alabama and ended up transferring to Maryland, having a few decision-making issues, but still ended up being the all-time leader in passing yards. He's an athlete, and he's going to get those NFL eyes just based on that. But if 2 NFL teams, one who actually could use a solid backup, said no, thank you. I mean, that would lead to Coach's earlier point that if I trust their opinion on especially in the role of quarterback, where everyone's going to always give their quarterback an extra 1, 2, 3, 4 chances, you have to believe that he needs a little bit of development, and this might be a solid place for it. But it may be a little bit of a road if you're talking practice squad, CFL, to making it back to the NFL days.
All right, Mel.
I mean, he gets an opportunity to continue his career. I mean, there's only a certain number of jobs available in the NFL. I think it's about 1,700 jobs available, and then you narrow it down to how many quarterbacks are available. It's tough, man. It's tough. There's a lot of college players that all have aspirations and dreams of playing in the NFL, and it doesn't work out. Gives them an opportunity to get some reps, to continue to chase his dream of playing professional football, and see how things shake out for him. I think it's good for him. Obviously, he's okay with it. It's good for him. Give him an opportunity to continue to grow and to develop. And we'll see what happens from there. But I don't think being Tua's brother helped any. I think that a lot of people probably question his drafts. Where he was drafted, and obviously, Tua had injury problems. And I think he's a little bit smaller and a little more slight than Tua. So, and he had some injury problems too, if I'm not mistaken, over there in Maryland. So,
right,
let's just see how it works out for him. Well, I'm happy for him. Hope he lights it up there. Hope he does have an opportunity to play in the league.
It's good to see Bo in the chat room. That's a tough path, no question about it, Bo. So, meanwhile, I have to say this show started out in Alabama. Then we went over to Detroit, and now we are concluding in Canada. Folks, we cover a lot of ground, don't we? Yes. All right, with that said, Katie, we need a station break. Go ahead, bring it on.
If you see that red subscribe button, hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. Monday nights we talk baseball, Tuesday nights we talk football. Wednesday nights, Sports Exchange, and Thursday nights, Fire Up. You never know what topic we're going to be talking about. Anything goes with sports. Wednesday night, Scott has a show called the Motor City Mad Mouse Show. It's a one-on-one interview show. It's on nofilter.net. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can catch us wherever you get your podcasts. You can go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where Jeremy writes, Scott writes, and I take pictures, and they're all up there for you to see. There is also a website that has some of our merchandise. I know Coach is going to talk more about that. But you can also, Scott's Twitter is @TribuneSouth. Scott wrote a book, and the sponsor of tonight's show is the South Florida Tribune Publishing Company, which put together and published Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Scott wrote it. George Eichhorn wrote the foreword. There's a picture of Scott and Muhammad Ali when Scott was a lot younger. And there's a lot of stories about his 40-plus years in the media. A lot of stories. Him meeting Lasorda and interviewing Lasorda. All kinds. Just, you got to buy it. Amazon, Kindle, Barnes & Noble, Google, and Apple. Audiobook to come later. Anything else, Scott, or did I cover it?
No, you did real well, Katie. Again, we try to cover all the bases that we can. Enjoyed having this group, Bo. You know, we certainly look forward to having you back on. Jeremy did a really nice job on short notice pinch hitting. Thanks for being on short notice, Jeremy. Okay, so with that said, everybody here gets a chance to see how they get a hold of you. We'll start off with Mel this time.
All the social media at Melfar Jr., and then you can follow what we have going on here in Georgia and in Michigan at melfarsuperstarfoundation.org.
Very good. All right, Travis.
You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes. You can find my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on BigCatCountry.com. If you're looking for a Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, we have the Duval Dive, a Jaguars podcast on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, wherever you catch your podcast. And as always, you can find me here every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. inside the Pigskin. As always, thank you for having me, sir.
You're very welcome. All right, Jeremy, go ahead.
Well, you can find me right here on the South Florida Tribune channel, normally on Thursday nights for Fire Up with Candy and possibly Scott and whoever else we throw in there. But occasionally you will find me here when needed on Inside the Pigskin or wherever else Scott needs me. You can also find my writings on the SouthFloridaTribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading. And you can also find me on my channel, which is Kneecap Biting with the Motor City Lions, where I go live 8 times a week talking about, well, the Detroit Lions and the NFL.
Okay. Well done, Jeremy. All right, Coach.
Well, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the only social media platform I'm on currently. Of course, you can catch me here on Tuesdays, although I won't be on here next week, Scott. It's our anniversary, so I'm going to take a rain pass for next week.
Smart man.
You don't have to worry about that. It doesn't make any difference. We may not be on here 2 weeks from tonight because Candy and I will be traveling back from North Carolina, but you have one piece of business, Coach, that you need to talk about.
Yep, and then you can catch Bo and I's show, Coach's Corner, on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock Eastern time on Roku, and that's about it.
No, it really isn't about it. There's one more piece of business that you need to talk about.
All right. Well, if you go out to Scott's website, ladies and gentlemen, to the South Florida Tribune, and you click on the shop icon, it's going to redirect you to their newly acquired sideline store, where you can get all of your South Florida Tribune merchandise on everything from T-shirts, hoodies, men's, women's, tights, all the way down to baby bibs and tumblers. It's a great shop. There's probably about 500 different items to choose from there. Go out there, support Scott, support the South Florida Tribune, and get your gear there.
Well, I'll say this: Coach coordinated the whole thing, so I have to make sure that since he's learned a lot being a broadcaster with us, now we have to shore him up the side a little bit on promoting all this stuff. Good job, Coach. There's future with you after all in the voiceover business. And by the way, an early happy anniversary anyway, so it's okay. It's all good. But meanwhile, we appreciate everybody for coming on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Special shout out to every individual that participated in the chat room. They start from Kate, obviously, and Joshua Dorr, made a very interesting appearance to say the least. But he did. We appreciate him. And who else? We have RXJ, Feather Freebird, Bo made it in there. RXJ. I feel like this is an eye test if I have to do RXJ, but RXJ, it was great to have you in there as well. So there you go. Detroit Fat Man, we got him in there too. Everybody, thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. We'll see you next Tuesday night. Good night, everybody. And once again, for those of you who haven't subscribed, please, I hope this show gives you a reason to do that. Good night, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for joining us.